What's up, everybody? Kyle Chris back with another Dragon Ball Super video, and today gonna be going over my top 10 placing deck from this last weekend at Origins, which is Xeno Sin. I am incredibly happy. If you guys have watched the channel for any point in time, you've probably seen one or two of these deck profiles on this channel. I absolutely love this leader. It's probably my favorite deck in the entire game. And I'm very happy that I was able to kind of shed some light on how good this deck actually can be. Now, I'm not the only person who has played this deck, of course, but being able to be one of the few people who have been able to put this deck on the map, I feel very privileged and very happy that we were actually able to get a top 10 finish with this deck. Quickly, we'll go over the matchups, how everything went for day 2 of Origins. My round 1 and round 2. Very similar. Both were Super Saiyan God Trunks. The matchup does not favor Trunks at all because of the fact they need to have cards in their warp. So you do have to mill some cards into your warp, especially off of the little 2-drop effects. But also the fact that the leader is a draw 2 on both sides, which ends up hurting them a lot because they cycle through their deck a lot. Not much really to say with that. It's a very easy matchup, unfortunately, for me on this side of playing Sin. Round 3 was Blue Baby, I believe, which was very interesting. It was a Blue Baby mill deck, and I was able to mill him out at the end. Unfortunately, this is also why I think Sin is probably the best mill deck in the game, is the fact that I can unmill myself with my Unison. I have the ability to tuck 3 cards back into my deck, while these other decks do not have that ability to at all, and it does give me a little bit of leeway when how I go about my turns. I can kind of go about them freely, and then I can just tuck 3, and kind of saves me whatever card there is that they're going to play. It allows me just to kind of play around that. So, not an incredibly difficult matchup, but a very fun matchup. The round 4 was Trunks and Vegeta. That matchup was very close. It came down to one particular play, which we'll get into at the end of the video when I go over my secret rare. There was a ruling that we had to double check on. The ruling went in my favor, which ended up giving me the win. Round 5 was against Blue Red Launch. I believe piloted by I think it's one of the FOE guys. I think it was Frisco, I believe was his name. I'm trying to remember everyone else's name. I can't really remember names very well. That was a fun matchup. Launch, again, another deck that draws quite a bit. So the match wasn't incredibly difficult from my end, but I did have to make sure that I hit at the sequence correctly. Because if you don't sequence correctly against a deck that can just spit out battle cards like Launch can, it ends up being very problematic for myself. So thankfully I was able to do that. Round 6 was against the gentleman who ended up winning the tournament, Robert Rizzi. He played U7. That match was incredibly good. I really wish that match would have been on stream. They decided to stream one round after that, which my match also could have been on stream, but they decided not to for some reason. I wish that matchup was on stream. That matchup was incredibly close. Very, props to Robert. He played that very, very well. I misplayed at the end, which we'll go over again. It goes through with my secret rare. We'll talk about that. But I made a 50-50 play and ended up going not in my favor and ended up costing me the game. Round 7 was against Legends. He was playing King Piccolo. Unfortunately, I was not prepared to play against any King Piccolo this weekend. I don't think a lot of people were. Just like people weren't really, ready to deal with, my deck. But he killed me, I think, turn 3. Wasn't very close, unfortunately. I didn't have a lot of experience playing against somebody who was able to pilot the deck so efficiently, as well as consistent, and just kind of hitting. He hit literally every card that you need to hit in that deck. So props to him. And then round 8 was against, I don't remember his last name, but I believe his first name was Devin. He is the gentleman who placed 4th with Goku GT. That matchup actually is incredibly easy for myself, but I think at the time we got to round 8 and I was just kind of burnt out. Misplayed a few times, but also I did whiff a few times off my leader because of some sideboard cards. So it ended up costing me the game. Ended with X3 being 5 and 3. it was pretty cool at the end of 5 rounds. I was the only undefeated left, and being a Sin player, being a Xeno Sin player for that matter, was very cool. Just a little tiny little accolade I like to just think about. I guess yeah, it's my tiebreakers helped a lot, I think, from getting top 10, considering I lost to first, second, and fourth, and those were my only losses for the day. So we'll get here into the deck profile. I'm not going to go over the leader too much, just the fact that my leader is a blocker on both sides, and Waken at 7 dragons in the drop or 4 less, and then we have an activate main or battle on the side to activate spear boost cards, or 2 spear boost to activate any of my spell cards from the deck. Anyone who's watched my videos, you guys know how the deck works. You guys have seen it plenty of times, so I'm not going to go over the leader too much. Now we will go over the deck, and the list has changed definitely since the last video. A lot of stuff is going to be the same until we get to some certain cards. So we run 4 Toa, mandatory. I did test out running the Mira Unison in the side, which I do think is incredibly powerful, and it actually is a very interesting tool that I think I'm going to explore in the future, is running different unisons other than the Toa, or in conjunction with the Toa. So, but Toa is your main target. You player, the -7 does come up, and you should actually play for the -7. If you know that your opponent doesn't have a lot of good barrier, or not barrier removal, very good unison removal, you should attempt to tuck these underneath and just build up one big unison. That way you can get the 7. Because your mill turns, which should be turn 4, turn 5, if you can couple that with a -7 from this, it ends up just giving you the win. We got close a few times and never was able to actually close it out with the unison effect. For extra cards, we're going to start with those first. 2 Whirlwind and 4 Negative Energy Explosion. So this searches out your extra cards, top 7, or plays out the unison. And then this searches top 5 for any Shadow Dragon battle card. Add it to your hand. You also have a second effect where you can pitch a Shadow Dragon card from your hand to give your leader 1k. And what's nice is that all the battle cards have an effect of when they're put in the drop area by a Shadow Dragon card. You can scry the top card of the deck. If it is a Shadow Dragon card, extra cards are included. You show it, and then you add it to your hand. If not, you bottom deck it. So the leader on this side also counts as a Shadow Dragon. Obviously, leaders have traits, so no one should call a judge or question you on this at all, like they did with me for some reason. But you swing, you pitch a dragon, you'll draw off this, and then you cycle the top card of your deck. You scry for the Shadow Dragon, you add it to your hand. So same thing with this card here, because it does pitch to the drop area from the hand. You can scry the top card of the deck, and you give your leader 1k for the turn. Very good against red matchups when you're awoken, because then you become a 16k. So they have to either, give a battle card, more power, or combo cards from their hand to get over your 16k, so it does end up coming up a little bit. We have 3 of the Powerball. This is one of your only counter plays you have in the deck, or I guess a counter attack. It is a remove something 15k or less, ignoring barrier. It sends it to the warp. If you have a unison in play, this is a free cost, so it ends up coming up quite a bit. You can also pump your leader or a battle card by 15k for the battle or the turn, whichever one ends first, and ends up being very powerful. You just pump something, and then if you're swinging for 35k on your leader, or you're giving it to one of your big battle cards that have double strike or triple strike or crit. So very good card. We run 3 of it just because you're going to see it multiple times. 2 Quake and 2 Ultimate Dragon. This is kind of our selective removal for the board. Dragon Sling Bullet underperformed all weekend. I think I may have casted this card twice for the actual counterplay effect, which reads, if your opponent is if they're declaring playing about a unison, you activate this card. Unison, before it comes into play, either has markers removed from it. They have 1 marker removed for every 2 cards in the drop and/or warp, or they put the card in the drop area. If they do not do either one of those, your opponent gets 1 attack for the turn. That's with anything. So it's a cool little floodgate, and then it has a second effect for the activate main or battle, where your opponent chooses one of their battle cards, enters the cost less than the card in their drop, and they send it to the warp, so they get to choose. It's like a remote series spawn. It didn't come up a lot. I played against 0 green, which I think is probably the best matchup for this card. But for decks like Cooler and Goku, so this card's going to be really good in the format. When the Cooler deck and the Goku deck both have a auto from their leader that can attempt to play a unison. So when they attempt to play a unison, you can counter with this. And then if they don't play a unison, this effect will still trigger because they're choosing to not take markers off of the unison that they're attempting to play, quote unquote, or they're not putting it in the drop area. So then they only get one attack for the turn, and then they mill a card because this is a Shadow Dragon. So it's still a very, very good card. I'm going to probably just move it to the side deck just because in the main deck it doesn't really see a purpose currently in the format. Now that may change in the next few weeks. Quake warps anything higher than your opponent's energy cost or current energy level, and you choose. And then at the end of the turn, if they have 15 cards, or after you activate this, I'm sorry, if they have 15 or more cards in their deck. I'm sorry, if they have 16 cards. Yeah, so if they have 16 cards in if they have 16 cards or more, that card that was warped comes back into play in active mode with its skills negated, very similar to the Supreme Kai negate. If they have 15 or less, the card goes to the drop area instead, which is good. It's just good removal. You can generally bait your opponent out a lot. They'll swing and they'll combo, like go for game. You can just tap one or just Spirit Boost, just activate this, just warp it, and then it's gone. You know, so very good combo phase removal. Incredibly powerful. And then we have our 2-drops for the main deck. We have 1 Ultimate Dragon Tackle and then 2 Ultimate Ice Ray. This card, if your opponent has a unison in play, you can activate it. Your opponent mills a card because it is a 2 cost, and then your opponent takes off 2 markers off their unison. If they don't, you get to draw a card and warp one of their battle cards of your choosing, no energy cost requirement. Very, very good. Definitely gets sided out in some matchups like Goku GT. For whatever reason, I didn't side this card out. I was actually very bad in the matchup, but like decks that have like +2 unisons that have really good effects on them, like i.e. Cell with the Vegito unison, or Gotenks with that same unison, you can use this to remove it. Also Boo unison, it's incredibly good. You can swing with your leader at it for 20, and then pop this, and then if they don't want to get rid of the card on board, they have to remove two markers. Between these two takes off 3, goes down to 1. Now you can play stuff without getting God Sealing. It's very good. Ultimate Ice Ray is the best extra card in the deck outside of the promo, and this card is your opponent mills 1. You choose 2 Shadow Dragon cards in your hand. You pitch them. If you chose 2 black cards and pitch them from off this effect, your opponent gets 1 battle card attack for the turn. Does not negate anything, but it is an activate main or battle, which means that Cooler and Golden Ape can't actually stop this. So where like Dormant does. This you can do it in the combo step, and then when you pitch 2 dragons off this effect, you want to pitch two battle cards because this is a Shadow Dragon card. You get the Scry effect to actually search the top card of your deck and then add it to your hand if it's the Shadow Dragon. So essentially, you're pitching 1 card to then draw 2, essentially, or you're pitching 3 to draw 2, essentially. But yeah, we're gonna end up bumping this up to 3 in the main deck, just because it is incredibly good. So that's all the extra cards. We'll go over the battle cards now, which we have 2 Natron and 4 Haze. This guy grabs any extra card from the drop area that is a Shadow Dragon, which just allows you to just loop any of these cards, including the promo, the newly added promo. And then this is your 3-drop spawn guy. You can play him and then tap 1 to put him in rest mode and then play out a 3 or less. Honestly, I wish this card did not exist and that all the 3-drops had the same effect as like the U7 deck where they all just cost 1. Because if they did, this deck would be, I don't think I would have ever lost the game ever with this deck, just because like this card is it's not cost effective at all. It's a 2 cost. It has to be in active mode. It has to hit the board. Like it's just, there's too much stuff that actually goes around making this card good, but you have to play it because your 3-drops are so important in certain matchups. Now for the 3-drops, we have you have to run every name in the deck. So all 7 Shadow Dragons you have to run, just in case you do get to -7 on your unison. It only plays off of character names, so you can't play, because there's like 3 different sins. You can't play every one of those. You have to play 1. So you do need to play all of the Shadow Dragons. So we do play at least 2 of every single Shadow Dragon. Just get them out here, and I'll kind of explain what these all do. Put the pre-release guys. Might as well put the pre-release ones on top, right? So we have Ice, 2 Nova, 2 Rage, 3 Natron, 3 of the SR Nova, and then 4 of the Sin Power of Darkness. So Ice is a barrier blocker. Restands at the end of the turn, good for pressuring battle cards, clearing boards. It's also just popping unisons that are 15k. Also just gives you another blocker. Very good into green matchups, very good into the Vegeta Trunks matchup because now you have a blocker on board that also has barrier. So 2 of this Nova. This is Nova actually replaced the 15k Haze that's got crit and blocker. If you were looking to play this deck, do not play that 3-drop Haze. It's a trap. It's not a good card. Because it's a 15k. Number 1 matchups you're going to play against that are difficult for this deck are red decks, and they can all just kill him when he comes into play. This and this Rage are very important because these are 16ks. So these not only get around the Goku that the U7 deck plays, that they play for 1. This card also gets around Vegeta Resolve Renewed because that card only hits 15ks or less. This card also gets around Yamcha because these are 16k, so they have to actually commit more to killing something rather than just the 1 card. Also, Wolfang Fist doesn't kill these as well. So this is a 16k crit. Also, when this card comes into play, you get to play the Unison out from your drop area with a marker on it. What's cool is that there's 2 different sequencing things that you can do with this particular card. So 1, if you -7 on this Unison and you choose to play the Nova, because this effect does not come from hand, you actually can play this from the drop area and then play the Unison back out, which is incredibly powerful. So it allows you to have this card here, maybe have a swing with it, -7, play your 7 dragons. When you play this card, play this back out, and then you can uptick it again and then go up to 2 markers. Very, very powerful. Second thing is this does not say if you don't have a Unison in play. So when you play this, if your Unison has 1 marker on it and you've already used the +1 or whatever, you can actually play this out from the drop area in exchange for that one, and then you have a fresh Unison that you can cycle with. It's come up a few times. It's just one of those weird sequencing things that if you're playing the deck, you should probably know how it works. 2 of the combo Rage. So this is a 16k blocker. We play this instead of the negate, which I'm probably going to end up... I actually don't play the negate battle card. I'm probably going to end up putting it in the side deck because I do think that card is very valuable. But this card, you can combo this off to burst 1, and then you restand your leader. So why this is good also is that your super combo, which is... the Oceanus card here. So this card here is it's a Sparking 5, and it has 0 combo power until you have Sparking 5. Okay, so if you're getting aggroed down, and let's say you have 4 cards in your drop area, you can combo with this to then burst 1, go up to 5, and now your super combos are live. Right. Also, it allows you to save your Unison because when you block on your Unison from your leader, your Unison gains a marker and you mill 1. So let's say you have 3 battle cards in there, or 3 Shadow Dragons, you block with this gains a marker, you go down, now you go up to 4 cards in drop area, you combo one of these off, go up to 5, restand your leader, now you have another block for your Unison. So this card is very good. It definitely needs to be in the main deck. The only problem is that because like your Unison and your Secret Rare don't count as Shadow Dragons, you kind of want to be careful when you burst stuff. So and it's only on defense. If you combo it on offense, you don't actually have to do the burst effect and you don't get the restand, but it's still just a good card to have. And then obviously the super combo. The super combo is one of the ones that has the other effect where when you activate Spirit Boost, you can tuck a Unison to draw 1 and gain a marker in your Unison. It doesn't really come up a lot, but it will if you absolutely need to keep a marker on her, so you can combo up on your mills, but generally you're not going to. 3 of the Natron. This card was really, really good last format. Currently right now it's probably just kind of average because green and red are kind of better in the format now. This is a deflect blocker, and it comes into play. It absorbs one of your opponent's battle cards 5 or less on board or in the drop area. Gain a keyword skill, up to 1 keyword skill until the end of the next turn. So why this card is incredibly good in that most matchups, you can actually play this to remove something on board 5 or less, right? And then gain the skills of that card. Let's say it has dual attack, you can then swing in the stuff. Against Ritzy, I did that. I ended up playing this to absorb one of his dual attacking for freezes from the drop area, give a dual attack, and then use this to clear his Android 17, and then restood it for blocker. So and it has a lot of effectiveness, almost like a Fin-like card. And then this card generally is good depending on what your opponent is playing. Also in the Trunks Vegeta matchup, you can play this card. Choose one of their 1-drops from the drop area, give this card barrier, and then if you play this, and this is the first battle card you played, their Poutine or their Trunks have to trigger, and they can't choose this card because now it has barrier. You can do the same thing with like Indestructible. If your opponent has like a Zamasu in the drop barrier or something with Indestructible, you can choose it, give this card Indestructible, and then before their auto will actually resolve, you'll already have that skill, so it can't die. So there's some cool things you can do with it. We run 3 of the Nova. Power of Darkness. This is the SR, essentially kind of like the Oceanus from the yellow deck. You pitch this, you actually warp this from your hand, you burst one, and you scry top 5 for a battle card 5 or less. That is a Shadow Dragon. Again, because of the bursting, you want to make sure that you have your Unison, you want to make sure that you have your Secret Rare, or you know where your Secret Rare is, so you're not actually bursting it off of one of these effects, because that does become a problem. I never actually bursted my Secret Rare in the entire tournament, actually, which is weird, which is great. But if you do, it ends up just kind of getting rid of one of your win conditions, so you want to be careful. This card is also super good to just play as a 20k crit, something that people just, I think, forget about sometimes. So it's pretty good there. But if you're going to use the leader effect, you're going to play this off of it because it gains a drop area effect. This one's not as important. And then we have 4 of the Sin, Power of Darkness. This is your 20k double strike. I call it the Black New Ruler, essentially. So you can actually play this card for 1. 2 different ways. One, off of the 1-drop Haze. You can play it off of it because it is a 3-drop Shadow Dragon. Or you can play it off of the Spear Boost effect. So if you activate Spear Boost, you take a marker off your Unison via the Spear Boost effect. You play this out for 1, and your opponent mills a card. So not only can you, let's see, the best combination for this is one of these. So the best combination is using the Ultimate Ice Ray or the Ultimate Dragon Tackle. So you swing as your leader, Spear Boost, activate one of these, and as soon as you activate one of these, you play this out for 1. So for 1 energy, you played a double striker, milled a card, and then made them mill 2 more, because 1 off of these and then 1 off of your leader. So for 1 energy, you milled them 3 cards, and potentially drawing a few cards, right? This card will just hard draw you a card. This card will cycle 2 cards. And then this card also has the effect of when it's played, you scry the top card of your deck. So you can generally just not lose any hand size, just cycle stuff, and then make them lose 3 cards from their deck. So that is a limit once per turn, but you can play this off of the 1-drop and then Spirit Boost to play another one. You just can't use the Spirit Boost effect twice. So those are all the 3-drops. Then we get to the bigger guys. We have 2 Omega. 2 of the 4-drop Sin, and then 1 of the 8-drop SR. To be honest, I'm probably going to bump this back up to either 3 or 4. This is a unique guy though, so maybe not 4. You play him out for 1, you cycle any of your 5-drop or less Shadow Dragons on the field to the drop area, and you play him out for 1. And when he comes into play, obviously the Scry effect, but then he warps any battle card. No energy cost required, so you can warp tokens off this guy, which is very, very important. That's generally what he's used for. You can play like you swing in with like this or something. They token negate, you then play this, pop the token, now you have a 30k swing. Very, very good. This guy is deflect, double strike, blocker, and barrier, and he's incredibly good mainly against blue. You play this guy to clear double strike unisons, or the 20k unisons. You can use it against red to clear the Jirans. Also just gives you a blocker, but he also has the activate main or battle. Spear Boost 1, you can restand him. He doesn't need to be in rest mode for this effect to go off. Your opponent mills a card, and then you can activate one of your 2 or less Shadow Dragon spells, which paired with your leader and some other cards, you can end up milling them 3 or 4 cards per turn. Incredibly powerful card. This is definitely going to be one of your best cards to use. It is a 4 cost, so it is a little pricey, but off of your -7, this is the best target for you because it will come in and it has the flex, so they can't actually counterplay before it comes into play. And then we have Omega, Ultimate Darkness. This card, I don't know how to feel about it. So it's an 8-drop unique triple strike. You play it out for 2 when you have 3 or more energy, and you send 7 black Shadow Dragon cards from your drop to the warp. It comes into play, scries a card. Now he's just a 30k triple strike, so he has no actual defensive stuff. Well, what makes him good is that you can play him into green matchups, and he ends up fulfilling his role of just being this gigantic finisher. Because green decks generally don't have very good ways of dealing with 8-drop bodies, so you can play this out for 2 and then swing in. Generally, if you have these 2 on board, you can probably win most green matchups, just because this is a lot of pressure for a green deck to deal with, especially if they don't have Dormant. For Oceanus, self-explanatory, you run it because it's searchable. People forget that this card actually has a scry effect because no one actually plays this deck, so they probably don't know that. But when this card's played, since it's a Shadow Dragon, you grab the top card of your deck if it's a Shadow Dragon, and the card you pitch off of this, if it is a Shadow Dragon, because it's pitched off of a Shadow Dragon, you get to draw a card. So you play this. Yeah, yep. So like you play this card, you scry. Let's say you pitch this from your hand. You scry the top card of your deck for this, and then you scry the top card of your deck for this. So very powerful. A lot of sequencing, a lot of synergy with the deck. Of course, got to run 4 of them. And then the last 5 cards in the deck all go together. So we have the 4 promos, the negative energy charge. This is the new boy. Lot of good things that this card does. This card has to be at the 4 of in this deck. If you're going to play it competitively, it's got to be 4. It's got to be 4. So a lot of text on this card. So first thing is it is a hard negate that's an extra card. Very important. So because this is mainly your only hard negate in the deck. Being an extra card, there's not a lot of decks that can interact with an extra card counterattack. So it negates because this card does count as a Shadow Dragon. Your opponent will mill a card, so they'll just mill. Second effect, you can grab a Dragon Ball from your drop area to your hand. Unfortunately, the negative energy explosion does not count as a Dragon Ball, so you actually can't add that. But I was experimenting before the tournament. I'm going to experiment a little bit more with actually adding some form of Dragon Ball support into the deck until they decide to actually add Dragon Ball support for the deck, which I'm sure they will at some point, which will be super, super cool. So the second effect, activate main or battle. You send 7 cards from your drop area to the warp, and you choose one of 2 effects. You either activate a negative energy Dragon Ball overflow from your deck, then shuffle your deck, or you may pay 4 energy. If you do, you play the Black Smoke Eternal Evil secret rare from your deck. So that is obviously the secret that we are running with. What's cool about this card here, before we get into Black Smoke, is that this card is not once per turn. This activate main or battle is the only extra card in the deck that is not once per turn, or limited one, I should say. Why this is good is that if you haven't seen your secret rare, so the biggest problem with this deck is that you need to find your secret rare. You need to make sure that it's not in your life, because you don't want to tap 4 and then play nothing, right? You end up just losing, probably just losing the game right there, right? So what you do is, once you find your secret rare, you can bottom deck it off your Unison and then use this to play it out. Or the other effect is you can activate the first effect first, which is search your deck for a negative energy overflow, and then just fail to find. So you can actually just activate one of these, whether it's your Spirit Boost, because then since this is the Shadow Dragon spell, you can activate it for free. So then you warp 7, and then you just search your deck and make sure that this is in your deck if you did not see it the entire game. It's kind of like a last ditch effort just to making sure that you don't screw yourself up and just tap 4 for nothing, right? Let's say it's in there. Okay, great. You activated this card already. You can now activate a second one to then play this out for 4, right? Now you can tap 1 for this effect and then tap 4 for the bottom effect, or you can Spirit Boost off of this or off of the 4-drop, and then you can activate this for just 4 energy. So don't let people tell you have to tap 5. This is not like the Cell deck where you have to tap 5 for that stupid extra card. We can play this for free and then tap 4 for the effect. That's how the Shadow Dragon deck works. Now we get to the big boy. Eternal Evil. This is your bread and butter. This is your big kahuna. This guy allows this deck to flourish in a higher competitive aspect, much more than what I was playing with it previously. So this card cannot attack. That's fine. If you have 12 or more cards in your drop area, reduce the energy cost of this card by 5, so it becomes a 5 cost. That's cool, but if you are not playing it off of that effect, if you're playing it off of this effect, it now becomes a 10 cost. So your opponent cannot, like, if there's any 5 cost like counterplay cards, they're not playing it from your hand. It stays at a 10 cost, right? So now you have activate main. You choose one of 3 effects. You either choose all of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and send them to the owner's warp. You send the top 7 cards of your opponent's deck to their warp area, and then draw 2. Or you choose 4 cards from your opponent's hand and send them to the warp. Why this is important is that this card gives this deck so much utility. This deck was missing barrier removal, and also being able to cut down hand size, right? Also was missing just a way of just being able to just mill your opponent out with 1 interaction. That's what this card allows you to do. So a lot of decks you can, just warp their board, gets rid of stuff, whether they're going for Xeno Sin or they're just having a lot of pressure on you, you can't kill them next turn. Just allows you to just clear stuff, right? You also can then warp 7 cards from the top of their deck, which is incredibly important against the U7 matchup, because if you warp stuff from the top of their deck, they can't get it back off their leader effect, and it draws you 2 cards, so you get to see 2 more cards. or you can rip 4 cards from your opponent's hand. So this is actually the play that cost me the game against Ritzy. Was turn 5, I knew I had to mill him out there or get rid of his Vegeta in some way, unless I would, I want to lose, right? So the idea was I played this, and then I had to think about it if I wanted to make him, because I think he had 13 cards in deck and 7 cards in hand. So I could have either warped 4 cards from his hand, not knowing if he had Vegeta or not. I did not see him draw Vegeta. I didn't see Vegeta at all in the drop area, so it's either in his life, which would have been perfect if it was in his life, in his hand or in his deck. So I chose the latter. I decided to mill him 7, thinking I was going to hit the Vegeta. Because if he played the Goku, I would be able to warp the Goku. The Goku wasn't a problem. But Vegeta was the only way that I was going to lose. I milled 7 from him. He did not hit Vegeta. Coincidence, he already had it in his hand. So then he ended up playing it and killing me. So that was a mistake. It's hard to... Those are just plays you kind of have to just deal with. So it is what it is. But every other matchup that I played this card in, I won. I think I played it... Out of the 8 games, I think I played it 4 times, and I only lost the one matchup to Ritzy when I played it. The other matchups that I lost, I never got a chance to even play it out or get to that point. But all the other matchups, I just played it, mill 7, GG, just shuffled on my cards. So definitely the best secret for the deck. Definitely the one that you need to run if you want to play this deck competitively. Now, onto the side deck, which is going to be changed a lot over the next few definitely over the next few weeks, and then who knows with new sets coming out what this deck will actually look like. But I have a lot of one-ofs that I'm not going to go over again, just because these are all just replacements for particular cards in the deck. If you're playing against more red that's not GT, you're going to side this in and take this out of the main deck. If you're playing against Vegito, like the Vegito Unison, if you're playing against a lot of the Buu Unisons, if you're playing against the Yard Rat Goku or the Green Cooler, you're going to side this in and take these out since they don't play a lot of battle cards. You can side this in for matchups where your opponent's not letting you establish the one-drop haze, i.e. matchups like Vegeta Trunks. When you play the one-drop, it just gets tapped, so you can't use it. So we actually play this one in here. Any aggro matchup that plays 15k body, either that or barrier cards that are under 15k, like Poutine, we add another one of these. And in the green matchup, I add another one of these in there, just so I have another way of pressuring my opponent down. One ultimate flame shot. This card never was sided in. I don't like this card at all, but it is a 2 cost, and it may come up sometimes. I sided this in just in case I got the top cut, which we were very close. We just needed to win 1 game and we were in top cut. But this card here allows you to you crit a life, your opponent mills a card, and then you don't take damage for the turn. Or the battle, whichever one ends first. So generally it would be the battle. It's kind of essentially like a brainwash no more. The problem is that all the red decks in the room, very, very aggro. So why would I want to take my life against a red deck, right? There's just it doesn't really make any sense to side it in. But in best of 3s, when I know what my opponent's kind of trying to do, I can end up probably siding this in for something. So that's why we keep it in the side deck. Now, the rest of this stuff is just tech that's not considered Shadow Dragon. So you end up having to run at least 2 of these cards, or else they're just not very effective. So we run 2 Jiren for the Turning the Tide matchups. If you get Turning the Tide, my goodness, the matchup essentially feels over because now you have to reset everything. But against the decks that are trying to get to 7 energy, you should be trying to kill them, not mill them. So this card just ends up just allowing you to keep your hand size, and you can probably just steamroll them next turn because they're not going to have any cards in hand. So some hand destruction support. We have 2 Saiyan Instincts and then 3 Deborah. 3 Deborah is not moving. You need to run 3 Deborah. Just keep it in the side deck. It's just going to stay there. You have to have this card in the side deck. This was a late addition, and actually came up in my baby matchup, and I think one other matchup. But just being able to, any deck that's trying to go to turn 5 plus, having this as just a combo card, or if you just mill it off the top of your leader, this just draws you 2 card and just allows you to deck thin a little bit better. Since you're running a 60 card deck, we need to find this as quick as possible, so that way we have a hand on it and we know where it is. And then the last 2 cards in the deck are going to be Kami. Slug obviously is a problem card for this deck, but this card just helps you remove any board that has Slug on it. Granted, this card actually does a great job too of removing Slug because it's just going to warp it. So whichever one you can actually get out first, you're going to end up like whichever one you can actually get out, because obviously this card's not searchable. It's not a Shadow Dragon. This card's not searchable. It's not a Shadow Dragon. So if you end up milling this card, it kind of sucks. You just kind of have to play around it. So all in all, it was a great weekend. I'm very, very happy that I was able to provide some some light spotlight for the deck. Hopefully people, I know people kept walking past top tables seeing me playing this, and they were very, very confused. A lot of people really enjoyed it. They were cheering me on. They really wanted this deck to end up topping. I'm glad I was able to. One or two mistakes probably would have got me to at least top 4. So, but for my first actual physical regional, I think it's pretty good. You know, I think I did pretty well. So, obviously we're gonna keep playing this deck. We're gonna keep practicing with it. Hopefully, more people can try this deck out. Hopefully, I inspired some people to play it. So, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.